Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saritam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvidam Shah. Manashiksha Text 9. Madhishanattatve Braja Vipina Chandram Brajavana Shwarim Tam Nattatve Tadatula Saki Tve Tulalitam Vishakam Shikshali Vitarana Guru Tve Priyasoro Garindro Tat Preksha Lalitarati Tatve Smaramana. Translation. O mind, always remember Vrindavan Chandra Shri Krishna as the Lord of my Swamini, Shri Radhika's life. Vrindavaneshwari, Shri Mati Radhika as my mistress. So remember also Vrindavaneshwari, Shri Mati Radhika as my mistress. Smara, remember Shri Lalita as the peerless friend of my Swamini. Remember Sri Vishaka as the instructing spiritual master and the arrangements of service rendered unto the divine couple. And remember Sri Radhakunda and Giriraj Govardhana as those who grant darshana of Sri Radha Krishna and bestow ecstatic love for the lotus feet. Okay, I have to do a very short discussion today because I'm about to go upstate for Jamuna Bihari's wedding. And I'm extremely pressed for time today because I have deity save and all that. I got to get a few things. So don't mind, the class will be somewhat brief today. But so here, Raghunath Das Goswami is basically describing the Rag Bhajan of a Madhurya Upasaka, someone who is worshiping Krishna on the path of the Madhurya Rasa. That means that they have the Madhurya Rasa as their prayojana. So he's describing the Rag Bhajan of such a devotee. So as we know, Raganuga Bhajan as defined by Sri Rupa Goswami, it has only a few elements are there. So first element there, Krishna Smaram Janam Chasya Preshtam Nijasamihitam. Tata Kata Ratascha Sokrya Bhasam Prajesada. So his first instruction is Krishna Smarana. You should remember Krishna. Krishna here means Vrindavan Krishna. So you should remember Vrindavan Krishna, who is Preshna, the Krishna that is dear to you. So there are different types of Krishna. There is a Krishna who is seen through the eyes of the Madhurya Bhaktas. There's a Krishna who is seen through the eyes of the Vatsalya Bhaktas. There's Krishna seen through the eyes of the Sakya Bhaktas. And there's Krishna seen through the eyes of the Dasya Bhaktas. So the Krishna that they see is different and non-different. You understand? So if you study the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu deeply, the part that we don't study, everyone knows that first ocean, but the next three oceans no one knows anything about. But that is the whole purpose for which Srila Rupa Goswami has composed the Bhakti Rasa Amrita Sindhu. It's called Bhakti Rasa Amrita Sindhu, the ocean of nectar that is Bhakti Rasa. So the whole Bhakti Rasa part starts after the first ocean is discussed. And that's the part that we don't discuss at all. So we don't know much about Bhakti Rasa. So that part you have to study. So if you study that part, you will see that the Krishna is described in each chapter on the different rasas is a unique Krishna seen through the eyes of those particular bhaktas. For example, Krishna's qualities are udipana. You know the word udipana? I'm looking at Siddha Hari's comment. You know this word udipana means the stimulants for bhakti rasa. Right? Just like we heard yesterday a little bit, how Krishna, he saw Vrindavan forest, and that Vrindavan forest became udipan, that inspired his Madhurya Rati, right? His love for romantic dalliance. Okay. So the udipans are there. Krishna's qualities are udipanas. They stimulate the rati in the heart of the bhakta. So you'll go and see in each of those chapters, the particular qualities of Krishna that stimulates the different types of love are unique. Obviously, there are some of Krishna's qualities that stimulates all types of love, but then there are certain of Krishna's qualities that stimulate particular types of love. So if you go and study a particular, when you just study a particular rasa, let's say Vatsalya rasa, then you understand from that chapter what are the udipanas that stimulate that rati, what are the anubhavas that follow from the stimulation of that rati, and so on. You will read about it in that particular chapter. So when it says here, Krishna smaram, jaram chasha preshtam, nija samitam. So you're supposed to remember that Krishna who is dear to you. That means in accordance with the aspiration in your life. So if you're aspiring for Madhurya Rati, then you remember that Krishna of the Madhurya Rati. So that means you have to know what is the Krishna of the Madhurya Rati. What is the Krishna seen through the eyes of the Madhurya Rati? What is the Krishna seen through the eyes of the Vatsalya Rati, if you were interested in that? If that was the ruchi that you have. What is the Krishna saying to the eyes of the Sakya Rati? What is the Krishna saying to the eyes of the Dasa Rati? So that Krishna you're supposed to remember. That is the dear Krishna for you. Krishna smaram preshnam. That is the Krishna that is dear to you. That means in accordance with your ruchi. Janam cha asya. Also, you have to remember his people that are connected to that Krishna. So if you're in the Madhurya Rati, you remember the gopis of Braja, for example. Nija samitam. Nija samitam means in accordance with the bhava that you're coveting. So you remember that Krishna and those devotees who are associated with that Krishna, that is in accordance with your aspiration for love. That you have to remember. Tat tat katara tash chaso. And you should engage in the kata of that Krishna and those people. That means that you should hear about that Krishna. You should do sukirtan. You should glorify that Krishna. Of course, Koryava se Brajesada, while always living in Braja. That always can't get out of that one. That always comes up. So how it should be done, that is mentioned in the second verse of Rupa Goswami. Seva sadakarupena siddharupena chatri. Tabhava lipsuna karya braje loka anusarita. So you should follow the Braja Loka. Braja Loka means the Brijbasis. There are two categories of Brijbasis. The Brijbasis in Gaur Lila and the Brijbasis in Krishna Lila. So Anusarita, you should follow both of them. How? Seva Sadhakarupena. So you should render Seva to the Braja Loka and your Sadhakarupa following the template of the Brijbasis in Gaur Lila. And Siddharupena Chatrihi. So Siddharupena Chatrihi, just to keep it simple, Siddharupena, we're going to just gloss here as your contemplative life. How you're thinking about Krishna and his associates. How do you meditate on them? From what position do you think of them? This is called Siddharupena Chatrihi. It basically is a reference to your contemplative life. So you surrender seva in your contemplative life, following the Braja Loka and the Krishna Lila. Understand? So that means you have to know how the Krishna Lila exemplars, how they think, how they speak, how they act, their anubhavas, how they move in relationship to that Krishna. So that is all described in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And of course, if those of us, if our Rushi is in the Madhurya Rati, there a whole extra book is given, Ujjala Nilamani, for that, for helping build our contemplative life, our life of contemplation and our life of vocal prayer. So in your Siddha Rupa, you will be thinking in a particular way. And in your Sadhaka Rupa, your actual gross body, you will be offering vocal prayer in accordance with your contemplation. So that is what is called the Sukirtan. Why I'm bringing this up, you'll see in just a second. So our contemplative life, we're meditating on Krishna and his people for a particular position in terms of one of the Braja Bhavas. And then in your Sadhaka Rupa, you use your voice primarily and also your ears, because it says tata kata chaso, you should do the kata. You should do the katha, that is Sukirtan, and you should also hear the katha. This is going on. That is with your Sadhakarupa. So it's a combination of contemplation and vocal prayer. There's like a feedback loop between the two. And this is how the Rag Bhajan is supposed to be going on. Without all the different esoterics, this is a very practical way of Rag Bhajan. Nothing sahajya about it, really. You have a particular ruchi, which has come from association with bhaktas having that particular ruchi. And you grow that ruchi by the culture of contemplation that is congruent with that ruchi, and by the culture of vocal prayer congruent with that ruchi. And the two creates a feedback loop that nourishes the rag, the rag bhajan of the devotee. And that way you become, fully Krishna conscious. By grace, you can get Krishna prema that way. Kevala prema, the Kevala prema that comes from Raganugiya bhava, which itself comes from Raganuga sadhana. So why I say this? Because now let us come to the Manashiksha. Basically, what you're seeing is an example of this application. So we're not going to go through so many details, because particularly from Bhaktivinoda Thakur's commentary, what you'll see is that he's just supplied ashtakams for nourishing the meditation of the devotee. And these ashtakams, of course, are also recited. So that's the sukirtan. That's what you're doing with your voice. And as you're singing, the images of what is being sung are transcreated in your mind. So that's your contemplation life. And in this way, the Rag Bhajan is going on. So if you look at all of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's commentary to each of the lines of the verse, he just provided different verses from Padyavali or from Stavamala, from Stavavali. There's ashtakams. That's literally the commentary. So we could look at all the ashtakams that he supplied, but maybe I'll have you do that for homework because my time is limited. I'm actually should be ending soon. Anyway, so you can go and see that. But I wanted to give you the connection to what Rupa Goswami is told about how Rag Bhajan goes on and its relationship to what we're hearing now. So here, in the first verse, or in the first line, Madhisha natatve, Braja Vipina Chandram Brajavana. So he's telling his mind that you should smaramana. Smara is applying to the whole verse. So smara means remember. Krishna smaram, janam chasha Krishna nijasamitam, right? You should remember Krishna. So what Krishna you should read, remember, he says, so Braja Vipina Chandra, remember that moon like Krishna, the moon like Krishna, who is the Lord of the forest of Braja. Braja Vipina Chandra. So the Braja Vipina, he's the master of the Braja forest. He is like the moon. And the devotees are like the chakora bird. You know the chakora birds? So the chakora birds apparently, maybe it's a mythic bird. Anyway, myth is true also. So the chakora bird is a bird that apparently lives only by eating moonshine. It lives by eating the rays of the moon. Or it is also said that when the moon would rise in the sky, the chakora bird would be seeing the moon. And I guess this bird would just look at the moon the entire night. And so the chakora bird is a bird that became very much closely associated with longing and specific romantic longing. Because this bird would just simply look at the moon the entire night. He would be so enthralled or infatuated with the moon. The entire night he's looking at the moon. And so it became understood that the chakora bird, he actually lives by eating moonshine. Maybe because the poet never saw the bird eating. He only saw the bird looking at the moon all night. So he said, this guy only eats the moonshine. He doesn't eat anything else. I don't know. These are how the scholars, this is how they speculate. But in any case, this is the chakora bird is like this. He's related to Madhura Rasa, Madhura Rati, usually. So the devotees are like chakora birds. They eat only the moonshine. Which moon? The Krishna moon. Braja Vipina Chandram. So remember that Krishna moon. So what Krishna though? As we mentioned, there are so many Krishna. There's Krishna seen through the eyes of the Madhurya Bhaktas, Krishna seen through the eyes of the Vatsalya Bhaktas, etc. And even within each category, there's nuances of love. And so that nuance of love in a sense, presents a different Krishna. So what Krishna you should remember, it says there, Braja Vipina Chandram. Remember that moon Krishna, that moon-faced Krishna, that moonlight Krishna, who is the master of the forest of Braj. But which one? The one who is the Lord, not Tatve. He is the Lord of Madhisha. So Madhisha means he is the Lord of my Lord. So who is the Lord of Raghunath Das Goswami? So he's in his contemplative life. Of course, he's an eternal associate. So in his eternal position, he is Reti Mandri, or sometimes he was called as Tosi Mandri. So he's a servant of Srimati Radhika. So Srimati Radhika is his master, Madhisha. My master is Srimati Radhika. So for those who are interested in the Mandri love of God, then they have a lot to work with, because this whole Stavavali is spoken out from that position of contemplation, the position of a Mandri and her love for Srimati Radhika. So the Braja of Krishna that I'm remembering is the one who is the Lord of my master, the Lord of the life of my master. So his master is Srimati Radhika. And this Krishna is the Lord of the life of my master, the Lord of the life of Srimati Radhika. So this is the meaning here, that he's saying that I should remember that Krishna saying through the eyes of Srimati Radhika. That is the Krishna that I'm remembering. So again, not any Krishna, so to speak, but that particular Krishna. And who else are you remembering? Tanat Tatve. So he's the Lord of Vrindavaneshwari, so Srimati Radharani. And Taratula Saki Twe tu Lalita. Also, I want you to remember the Lita. Who is Lita? Taratula Saki Twe. She is the incomparable friend of Radharani. Tat. Atula Saki Twe tu Lalita. Remember that Lalita, who is the incomparable friend of Srimati Radhika. So again, Krishna Smaram Janam Chasya Preshtam Nija Samitam, right? You're supposed to also remember the Janam Cha Asya, those persons who are related to that Krishna Smarana. So this, for Raghunath Das Goswami, he's remembering the Krishna that is related to Srimati Radhika, who is his master. So his remembrance has Radha at the top. She's at the top. And so that's who he's really remembering. And he's remembering Krishna because of his love for Radha, being primary. And because of his love for Radha, he's also remembering those who are dear to Srimati Radhika. Beginning with Lalita. So Lalita is most intimate friend of Srimati Radhika. So she's described here as Ta Atula Sakitve. She is the incomparable friend of that Krishna. So for this, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has given the Lalita Ashtakam of Rupa Goswami. It comes in Stavamala. So he just gives, as to the purport of this particular line, the whole Lalita Ashtakam. So the sense there is that you should recite that. That's how you will remember. How you will remember, you have to engage your tongue. By engaging the tongue, then if you contemplate the meaning of what you're singing, it gets translated into the mind. And that way you remember. Because the instruction here is smara, to contemplate or remember them. So he just gives us his purport, the holy Ashtakam. That's it. So you do that, singing, and then you remember. And that way this instruction is accomplished. Of course, this is, of course, if that is in accordance with the type of love that you're trying to, that you covet for yourself, so to speak, your rushi. Who else is he remembering? Vishakam, Shikshali, Vitarana Gurutve. So he wants to remember his guru, who is Vishaka. So Tosi Manjari or Reti Manjari, she's in Vishaka's group, it seems. So when there are many prayers there, particularly in the Vilapa Kusa Manjali, where Raghunath Das Goswami is expressing unbearable separation from Srimati Radhika. And so in order to help hold the pain of separation, Reti Manjari runs to Vishaka, and Vishaka gives instructions to her to pacify her heart. So in that spirit of contemplation, because contemplating from that subjective standing. So I'm remembering Vishaka, who is my Shiksha Guru, Shikshali Vitarana. She's not only my Shiksha Guru, But she is the guru of all the gopis, Ali Vitarana. All the gopis, she's giving shiksha and how to do various arts. Vishaka is particularly, I think, famous for her singing. Her singing is very beautiful in Krishna Lila. Often, if you read the Ashtakala Lila Smarna Padati literatures, then there'll be descriptions of Vishaka's singing and how beautiful it is. Everyone will be enamored by it. So she gives all sorts of shiksha and doing various artistic performances and so on. So I'm remembering that Vishaka. Of course, this is because of being Rati Manjari in its contemplative life and its ontological position also. And therefore, this remembrance is also required. I mentioned this yesterday. In the Madhurya Rati, when there's remembrance of Krishna, at least 3 people are there. Radha, Krishna, and one Saki is there. And maybe one Manjari also, depending if you're in the Manjari. So at least 3 will be there. So all of this remembrance is being told here. Who else that we're to remember? Priyasara. Priyasara means the lake, Radha Kunda. I'm remembering that Radha Kunda. So for that, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is giving Radha Kunda Ashtakam and so many other Ashtakams glorifying Radha Kunda. So you do vocal prayer of the Radha Kunda Ashtakam, you contemplate in this way. Garindro. Garindro means Govardhan. Why you want to remember these 2? Priyasara, Garindro. Why remember them? Tap Preksha Dalita Rati Datve Smanamana. So Datve means that they give Dalita Rati. They give this beautiful Rati. And Preksha, Darshan, of Tat. Tat means of Radha Krishna. So you should remember them also because they give beautiful Rati and they give beautiful Darshan of Radha and Krishna. Without their mercy will not at all be possible. Because Raghunath Das Goswami thought this way, he lived at the Radha Kund near Govardhan Hill. He lived there and he offered these prayers, vocal prayer, and these contemplations. And by the strength of his vocal prayer and by the strength of his meditation, you can say, as in the spirit of a sadhaka, he's able to, in a sense, oblige. I don't know if that's the right word. It's probably the right word, but oblige a descent of that love into his heart, so to speak. That's what he wants. So that's what's going to come. As we know, prema controls Krishna. So this is very clearly stated by the Lord to Durvas Muni. So we know prema controls Krishna. Bhav also controls Krishna to a lesser degree. And sadhana also controls Krishna. So this is a talking point of Jiva Goswami and Bhakti Sandarbha. Sadhana Bhakti also controls Krishna, obviously to a lesser degree than Bhav and Prema. But it also controls Krishna because if your sadhana becomes very deep, if our sadhana becomes steeped, in a sakti, that is steep, means a sakti. So in your vocal prayer, your contemplation is like this, then by the strength of that prayer life, you can oblige the descent of that bhava into the heart. The bhava that you so much covet, the bhava that is your North Star, that is the goal of your life. By the strength of your sadhana, you can cause it to descend into your heart and become bhavuka devotee, become premika devotee. That becomes possible. So if you take the instructions of Rupa Goswami, 3 verses he is given for the Raganuga Bhakti. The 3rd verse, I never share the 3rd verse, but the 3rd verse is Shravana Kirtanadini Bhairi Bhak Duditani Tu. The angas of bhakti that were spoken of Vaidhi, they are also the angas of Raganuga Bhakti. So that's why this whole concept of do Vaidhi Bhakti to Lord Chaitanya or whatever it is, this weird concept that floats around in ISKCON specifically. Do Vaidhi Bhakti to Lord Chaitanya. What do you mean do Vaidhi Bhakti? The angas of Vaidhi Bhakti are also the angas of Raganuga Bhakti. They are the same angas only. Shravana, Kirtanadini, Shravana, Kirtan, etc. These are the angas of Vaidhi Bhakti. These are also the angas of Raganuga Bhakti. Bhakti Uditani too. But the angas, of course, Yanyangani Chaitanyatra Vigneyani Manishabi. They're followed with some discernment. So the discernment we discussed already in the, what is that? Rag Chandrika. When you have Nija Bhava, what is that? Sambandhi and Sarupa and Anukula and Aviruddha. Remember these different types of ways. You have the application that is steeped in that bhava, and that is favorable to the bhava, that is neutral to the bhava, that is unfavorable to the bhava. These 5 types were mentioned there. Rabbi mentioned. Maybe we would have to review that. But in any case, the angas of Vaidhi Bhakti are also the angas of Raga. They're the container for bhakti. And in that container, you are given the space to fill it up with your smarna and with your sukirtan. You fill it up, that container, that way. And then you offer that to the Supreme Lord. And in reciprocation, with such sincere bhajan, then Krishna gives the love and reciprocation with such sincere bhajan. So you take these 3 verses mentioned by Rupa Goswami and you connect it to the contemplations that are being offered here by Raghunath Das Goswami, and you can read the commentary. I'm just glossing it here, because he, in the Sri Bhajan Darpana Bhagavad Thakur, he is given only the ashtakams. So that you don't have to chant those particular ashtakams if they're not relevant to your ruchi. But according to your ruchi, you should study the literatures of the Goswamis especially. And you find out, this is my prayer spoken through the voice of this acharya. This is what I want to say also. Oh, this one I also want to say. And that way you create your own stavavali in a sense. You understand stavavali? Stavavali means a row of stavas, a row of prayers, a row of glorification. So you don't have to do the stavavali of Raghunath Das Goswami necessarily. Of course, a lot of the Babajis, Radhakund, so they will just impose this. Everyone's got to do this one. Because the argument is, of course, there's some logic to it. All of our acharyas in our Gaudiya line were manjaris, like all of them practically. You don't hear one of them spoken of as a saki or as a kalharpa or anything. So with that, they make imposition. Everyone's got to do it this way. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, we don't agree to that. Also, we can be having some scars from previous sanghas that are still playing out in our lives. So we have attraction in different ways. Our ruchi has been established elsewhere. Who knows? In any case, so you can build your own stavavali. That's what I want to say. So that is the hard work of being a person, or a personal approach to Krishna consciousness. Now we're just taking from the acharyas as we must, because we are impoverished. But we don't have to take without discernment. We can take in accordance with ruchi once that becomes clear to us. In the beginning, it's just an open field. You're just taking everything. But then as it becomes clear to you, what is your attraction, then you make your own stavavali. Now, because I'm an idiot, I'll not be able to compose my own stavavali in Sanskrit, or even in English. I wouldn't be able to write anything very wonderful, maybe. That's okay. Then you take the remnants of the Vaishnavas, you understand? We say this thing, there are 3 things that give prema in this world. 3 things that give prema. 3 types of prasad. The foot water of the Vaishnavas, the dust of the Vaishnavas, lotus feet, and also the food, the prasad that they have taken. That is called Maha Maha. So when you offer something to Krishna, that is Maha Prasad. And when a great soul eats it and there's something left over and you take that, that's called Maha Maha. So you take the Maha Maha Prasad. You understand? The Maha Prasadam, the Maha Maha here is their stavas. They have offered these stavas to the Lord. And because I'm a fool and rascal, I'm completely idiot. I grew up in Kali Yuga. I know nothing. I'm hopelessly ignorant. So if I have to compose my own stavavali, I'm finished. Even if I had to write in English, it would be terrible. Okay, so no problem. Then you take the Maha Maha of these great souls. You understand? They themselves are offered to Krishna. So you take their Maha and you create your own stavavali from their Maha. You understand? And that way that becomes your contemplative life and your sukirtan, something that you sing every day as your life sustenance. Because we live on the Mahaprasad, the food stuff. But for the Raganuga Bhajan, his mind has to feast on something. What will the mind feast on? What will his voice feast on? So it will feast on the Maha of these great souls. So I've made my own preparation from their Maha. You can imagine there's many plates of Maha, and then you just take a little bit from here, and you make your own contemplate. Of course, when I say make your own, So you're supposed to take that preparation and go to a Bhajan Shiksha Guru and have it confirmed. So we talked about that yesterday. That's called Varana Dasha, the stage of acceptance. Right? So this is not to be done. This is not like a make it yourself. This is supposed to be done with guidance of Bhajan Shiksha Guru. But in case, I'm just giving an intuitive sense of what's going on here as best I can according to my ID card, which is not very much, but giving some appreciation of what's happening here. So in this way, we build our life of Rag Bhajan. It doesn't have to be exactly like Raghunath Das Goswami, unless you're also after the Manjari Bhav, then you have a lot to work with. And if that is not your particular ruchi, for whatever reasons, past life, some scars or whatever it may be, then this is a general template that can be used. And with the association of Bhajan Shiksha Guru, you can build your vocal prayer life or contemplative life. So here he's praying this way. So you can go and read the commentary yourself and just see all the stuff that Bhaktivinoda Thakur's put. So it's just very interesting that that's how he's chosen to comment on this particular verse. So it is indicative of how we might apply Rag Bhajan when it's time for us to do so. Okay, I'm gonna stop here. It's 8:49, so I wanted to finish kind of a lot earlier, but anyway, whatever. Does anyone want to say anything final before we skedaddle here? We get scared after hearing the list of offenses. So yeah, we don't want to read the other parts of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So that will be our loss. What can be done? So what's the homework? Yeah, read the commentary about Bhaktivinoda Thakur. You can see is how he just has given commentary to this by citing these stavas. This one and that ashtakam, the other ashtakam. This way he's building up reason. Is there a reason why Krishna first and then Srimati Radhika? Well, I said Srimati Radhika first in my class. So because he's Manjari, so he has more affection for Radha than for Krishna. So he's praying to, even in the previous verse, he's praying to Giridhari so that he can get Radha's mercy, or he can get darshan of Radha. So that his attachment to Krishna is because of his attachment to Radha. So in that spirit, he is doing his bhajan. So private thing says, I like the idea, make our own Stabhavali. Why not? This is practically a very loving activity, yes. Yes, and it's a different application of taking the Mahaprasad. We always hear this. These three things give prema. We hear this all the time. The foot water of the Vaishnavas, the dust of his feet, and his Mahaprasad. So there's a very practical way of thinking about it. All this is Mahaprasad. So you take that remnant and you build it. Even like when devotees give class, they say this thing all the time. So devotees will say, oh, you gave such beautiful class. And we will say, these are just the remnants from what I've gotten from the previous acharyas, isn't it? Which is a fact, because we're idiots, at least most of us. So if we had to speak on the strength of our own intelligence, it would be a horrible mess. But if we take the remnants of the acharyas and we just repeat in an interesting way, not in a dry way, we repeat, we allow whatever the acharyas have told us to sit in our hearts and contemplate it. And then we allow it to come out of our mouths like honey. Honey dripping, because we're like really excited about it. It's really part of our life. And then you've taken that remnant, and now you get to repeat the remnant. And then by that Mahaprasadam of the Acharya, you get to go back home at the Godhead. You get to attract the prema of that is dear to that is the goal of your life. So in this way, it requires a little bit more muscle, spiritual muscle, than I'll just chant and hopefully one fine day, everything will come out, and nothing is coming out. So yeah, this is a very practical way of taking Mahaprasad. Beautiful inspiration to learn and meditate on verses close to us, yes. So Manjari Bhav is general, and is there something like attracted to a specific Manjari? Yes. So that is true for all the exemplars, and all the exemplars in Braj Leela, they all have nuances to their love. So without hearing Krishna Leela, you now understand so many nuances. And without also perhaps study a Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, or at least learning Bhakti, you won't be able to make out all those nuances so much. But once you make out the nuances, because you hear nicely, or they're discussed, and you have a chance to hear about these things, then something's cost you. Just like watching, it's I wouldn't say just like, but it's something akin to watching a movie. And a particular character's personality sticks out to you. The way maybe in the movie there are like 5 different queens. So the queen is a general category. But the way this queen is different from that other queen. And the way that queen is very attractive to you. And so then you started like, you were like excited for that queen in the story. You're cheering them on when something bad happens to them, you feel remorse and so on. This is called sympathetic heart saritya, having sympathetic heart. So you hear Raja Leela, and if you develop sympathetic heart with one of the Braj exemplars, then that sympathetic heart allows you access to their emotional world vicariously. And that becomes part of your contemplative life. Just like I see, there are whole fan pages for these TV shows. Fandom page, I think they call them fandom pages or whatever. And people know all sorts of weird details about these characters. It's like amazing. They do YouTube videos about it. And they know like the weirdest stuff, like the weirdest details. And if someone challenges them, they have like pramana for smashing the challenge. And because in this book, on this page, this thing was told, and that means it's really part of their contemplation life. They're sympathetic to these characters and they live out their lives through these characters practically. So you could say something like that, but with the eternal drama of Krishna Lila. So we have to spend time with that, otherwise how will it come to us? It will not come. Right now, the attraction sounds very vague or abstract. It is, unless you know the drama. Bhakti Vishrambha Maharaj said that Krishna is not only interested in what we are offering, but what we are hiding behind our back. Yes, he always used to say that. I remember that too. What do you mean to say by bringing this particular thing up?
Well, you were mentioning that how we need to have spiritual muscle. That is a 16 years is not enough. Then so that's something Maharaj used to say, that what we're offering is not enough. Krishna is hiding in the back, behind our back.
Yeah, we can get the muscle, the spiritual muscle. That requires a little bit more hard work. What's the hard work? Well, we have to hear a lot more.
We have to relocate to where devotees are. That's called a grudge.
That is ideal. That is the hardest work, because we are very attached to the mundane, America and this place and the other place. And then read these literatures of the Goswami. Prabhupada writes that, he said, what does it mean to live in Vrindavan? Prabhupada writes this. He says, to live in Vrindavan means to study the works of the Goswamis. He says, that's what it means to live in Vrindavan. So even if you live in America, if you are preoccupied with studying the works of the Goswamis, then you also be living in Vrindavan, because their books are a Vrindavan life only, Vrindavan contemplation. And that way you can live in Vrindavan in your mind, as it is told, as a compromise if you can't go to Braj itself. And so that hard work we have to do. And then after that, you can build your Stavavali. The prayers, basically you said, that is my prayer spoken through the voice of that Braj exemplar. It is their prayer, but you said, this is my prayer. This is the feeling that I'm also having. So I'll offer this prayer to Krishna. And that way we may have some chance for a sort of life of Rag Bhajan. They're very practical Rag Bhajan, nothing super esoteric here as such. It's just a life of singing and meditating. And then when you meet with other devotees who are similar to you in that regard, then what takes place is called as Guhyam Akyati Prichati. You understand? So this is going back to Rupa Goswami's Guhyam Akyati Prichati. So normally we take this, to share our narts with each other. Oh, Prabhuji, I'm having a problem with this and another. That is for the beginners who only are doing bhajan kriya. And no, Narada Vritti hasn't been accomplished yet. So hey, Prabhuji, I have this problem, I have that problem. That's okay. But when you do Rag Bhajan like this, or this is like your contemplative life is like this, then what is the Guhyam Akyati Prichati of these devotees? Then you can understand what is the real meaning of Guhyam Akyati Prichati. Just as Rupa Goswami in the Mangol Charan of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, I mentioned this many times now. At the very end of his Mangol Charan in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he says, I've written this book for the joy of my friends. I've written this book, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, for the joy of my friends. In other words, Guhyam Akyati Prichati. He's doing the Guhyam Akyati part. He's revealing the confidential secrets in his heart. And then the other devotees, Guhyam Prichati, they may inquire about them. Guhyam Prichati. So this is called as the six loving, it is the middle pair of six loving exchanges mentioned by Rupa Goswami. Then that sort of thing will take you back home to Godhead. As Prabhupada says, he says simply by these six ways of exchanging love, one can go all the way back home back to Godhead. But what type of exchange though? If you just talk about anarthas, that might not be sufficient. There should be this Guham Akati Prachati. Hey, this is my Stabhavali. You want to hear it? Oh yeah, this is part of my Stabhavali. And that way devotees are passing their time joyfully in Krishna consciousness. What a life it would be, huh? We can only imagine such a life. I remember reading that Radhanath Maharaj used to spend sleepless nights with Bhakti Tirtha Swami. Yes. And who knows what is that Guhyam Akati Prachati? But I'm sure it wasn't, hey, bro, I'm having this trouble, that trouble. They're talking Krishna. Like Ramananda Roy and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or Vidura and Uddhava all throughout the night speaking about Krishna. So we can only imagine such a thing. It's okay. Let us go on imagining also. And that way, maybe our imagination will make reality at a certain point with the intensification of our desire. Okay, I'm going to stop here so I can run and carry on my very hectic day that's going to happen. Thank you all very much. Hari Om Tat Sat. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami Pai Ki Jai. Srimad Shiksha Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Sri Buddha Gaudiya Ki Jai. Go Premanandi.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hari.